Okay, so as you can see from the title of this video, what I want to do today is do a series review and discussion basically of the, of the 50 Shades Trilogy by E.L. James. So that's 50 Shades of Grey, they're like half upside down, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed, and I'm going to put these down now. And so first I'm going to do a non-spoiler review, and then I'll do a spoiler discussion. I will let you know, which this you should already be able to tell too, I have a feeling this is going to be kind of long because I have a lot of things to say about it, both good and bad. I don't have my notebook with me, but I took a lot of notes while reading these, especially the first two books, and then usually before I do a review video I like outline points that I want to talk about, and it's honestly usually like 4 or 5 lines on like a piece of loose leaf paper. These are my notes. It's like every line is full, plus I had more things I wanted to talk about, so I had to write them across the top. So I have a feeling this is going to get long, but it's something I want to do, and I hope that this becomes like a way to have a conversation about these books. And there's been a lot of videos going around, like trailer reactions, and every trailer reaction I've seen so far on YouTube has been done by somebody who's never read the books, and they've been kind of like judgy, and I realized a few weeks ago that I was being really judgy about these books. And so a little backstory, I'm not a fan of Twilight. If you're new to my channel, I don't feel like I've made that a secret. I have read them all. I've read Twilight twice. I think I read New Moon twice too. But I read them all. I actually own them. I just don't have them on my bookshelf because I don't like them, so I don't prioritize space for them. Initially, that was my main problem with them. I've been getting into the review thing, but I feel like this is important. I feel like my backstory with these books is important. I am not going to want to edit this video. My stepmom read them, and she kept asking me if I wanted to read them and kept saying things and was like, oh yeah, get it out. So, one, not a fan of Twilight, so I didn't think I'd want to read anything that's based on Twilight fanfiction. Additionally, when they first came out, there was a lot of comments about them. They became very popular, they were in the news, there was a lot of discussion, and people were talking about how sexual they were, and I was just like, oh, I don't know, I mean, what is it? Like, is it, I don't know. But like I said, my stepmom read them, and she said that she didn't think that the sex was that bad. As a romance reader, I wouldn't be made uncomfortable by it, and I was like, oh, okay. So I've occasionally had the desire to check them out just to see, but I was unfortunately embarrassed to take them out of the library, and I didn't want to buy them because just personal reasons. I don't know, I just didn't want to pay money for them. But my stepmom owns them, so she was just like, well, if you ever want, you can just feel free to borrow them. I don't care. So I borrowed them. So the trailer dropped. I did watch it. I'll talk later about my thoughts on the trailer. I did watch the trailer, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to read the books. And the one thing that really made me want to read them is I saw this clip, and I don't even remember where I saw it, but Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson were doing promo work, which is crazy that they're doing like promo work for a trailer release. So they were on like one of those morning shows. I think it was the Today Show. And the journalist asked Dakota Johnson if she wanted her parents to see this movie, because her parents are both actors, so it's not like there's like random people, you know, whatever. And she said she didn't want her parents to see it, and the news lady said, oh, because it's embarrassing. And I just found that really rude and condescending, and I feel like that colored my reading of these books and my interpretation of them, because Dakota Johnson said no, it's because, I mean, sexual, like you wouldn't want your parents to see you do things. I mean, to them, you're their child. They want you to be like innocent and pure and all of those things, and so it's uncomfortable. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's like a BDSM story or anything like that, but just in general sexual content. She said she wouldn't want to see her parents do that either. I wouldn't either. I'm on that train. Yeah, so that conversation really made me want to read them. Also, I feel like I've had fairly strong opinions about them in the past, and I feel like that's wrong without having read them. Additionally, Colleen Hoover posted on Facebook when the trailer came out. She said that she had seen like the world split in two about the movie, like the trailer. People were like, oh, they're amazing, and people were like, oh, that sucks. And she said, say what you will about them, but they brought a huge group of women to books, and for better or worse, that's a good thing. And in a lot of ways, that's what Twilight did for teenagers and women. I mean, young adults and young women and older women. It brought them to this world that they didn't even know. In case you don't know, which honestly I feel like a lot of people don't actually know what 50 Shades of Grey is about. I feel like people think they know, but they don't. So it is based on Twilight fanfiction, but so it is told in first person POV, and it is about a girl named Anastasia, or Anna, and she is getting ready to graduate from college, and her best friend gets sick, and she has to go do an interview for her best friend. And that interview is interviewing a 20-something, like a later 20-something entrepreneur named Christian Grey, and he's very elusive, and she doesn't really know anything about him, but she goes and interviews him, and she is like this awkward heroine. She's clumsy. She's Bella, basically. And Christian's kind of intense and intriguing and kind of a mystery, and she is attracted to him, and he kind of talks to her, and then they continue to keep meeting up and interacting, and eventually they start talking in a different capacity and start pursuing a sort of relationship. However, Christian, because of things in his past, which is important, I'm not going to tell you what they are, but it's really important that you know that he's not just like a whack job. He's into like the BDSM lifestyle, and in that way he is a dominant, and so he really only goes into relationships with women where they're going to be submissive, and he's going to be a dominant. And this is in all things. So it's sexually, it's in real life. You're expected to obey his rules, and there's punishments if you don't, but it is all consensual. So it's something that's discussed between both parties, what they can do, what they can't do. Both parties go into it knowing what's going on. The issue is that Anastasia is young and is like, what is this stuff? She like knows nothing, which is an issue, but we'll get to that maybe if I remember, because I didn't write that down in my notes. But so it's all about them, about Anastasia having to come into this relationship and deal with what he wants out of it, but what she wants out of a relationship, and also this different lifestyle that's often mocked and criticized in our society. So that's the series. So it's about their relationship and all of that, and it more happens, you learn more as the series goes on and stuff. But I feel like it's important to know that there's a reason Christian is like this, and it's not just like raunchy, it's not plotless. I will say I gave the first book 3 stars, and I gave the second and the third 4. Just really quick, without spoilers, things I liked and disliked. I didn't think the series was anything particularly special. Shocked me, it didn't do anything. Well, I say there's a few things I found interesting, but it just wasn't groundbreaking to me. I've read a few BDSM stories before. There's a Black Dagger Brotherhood book. It's Vicious's story that has similar themes. Not quite to this extent, but and I just feel like that's done better, or maybe it's just more to my taste. I do think Anna's kind of a bland character. She gets a little better as the series goes on, but in general I find her kind of boring and passive, and things just happen to her I don't particularly like her voice. I kind of prefer the book be told from Christian's point of view, or like a third person. I also think the writing is kind of weak, especially in the first one. You could really tell the Twilight like source material of it and everything, and plus there's issues for me with like the dialogue and everything, but as the series progresses it gets better. I think she kind of becomes a stronger writer. It's still not like amazing, but it's better, and I definitely would say I don't think these are for everybody. I think if you don't like sexual content, then don't read it. If you don't think you'd want to read a BDSM story, then don't read it, but that doesn't mean other people can't. I definitely wouldn't say this is an introduction to the world of like romance, or this is marked as an erotic romance. So that's a step beyond romance. So if you don't know how romance is packaged, then you may not fully understand this, but you have romance, and then you have erotic romance, and then you have like erotica, and there's different levels. And so I mean, this is beyond like a Sabrina Jeffries book, or like a Jill Shalvis book or something. They're more erotic. I mean, it's in the name, so shouldn't be surprised. So yeah, so now spoilery discussion. Anna. So like I said before, I am not her biggest fan. I think she's kind of just boring. She doesn't really have a past. She doesn't really have anything that ties me to her emotionally. She like pretends to stand up for herself a lot of times, but doesn't actually like follow through with anything. She's also one of my least favorite types of heroines, which is she's super clumsy, but only when it's convenient. So like at the beginning of the book, she like falls into his office, like she trips and falls. She's in like flats and she trips and falls. But then throughout that book and subsequent books, she's in like heels, she's in like Louboutins without any issue. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And I just don't like clumsy heroines. I feel like it's a false characteristic. Watch, one day I'll write a book and it'll be a clumsy heroine and it'll come back to bite me in the ass. But I just feel like it's used way too much and it's just unnecessary. Additionally, I'm not a big fan of the like super plain Jane, but like every guy loves her thing. Like, it's ridiculous. And it happens a lot and it's just annoying. Additionally, my other issue with her is she's very innocent. So she's 21, but she's never had a boyfriend. I don't think that's that big of a deal. She's 21. I mean, I feel like a lot of people, especially in college, just kind of like will go out and will casually date, but won't necessarily settle down, which is fine. So I don't have an issue with that. But my issue, and this kind of ties into my next topic, is that she's never been in a relationship and she jumps into this really intense relationship with Christian, and I feel like sometimes she's almost being manipulated by him. A lot of times, like, so in the first book especially, she would be like, they'd be discussing like what they will do together in this lifestyle, and she'd be like, yeah, I'm really not, that doesn't appeal, like this one particular part of it or whatever. She'd be like, no, it doesn't appeal to me. And he'll just be like, okay, I understand, but would you maybe try it, like, for me? And I'm just like, and to some degree I understand where he's coming from, having an open mind and all of those things, but I just felt like it happened a lot where he was kind of like taking advantage of the fact that she'd never been, like, she didn't know what to ask for and she didn't know what she wanted out of a relationship. Like I said before, his manipulation kind of bothered me a little bit, and sometimes the way he treated Anna, just, he was a little too domineering. Like, I understand his character, like his personality, and to some extent I understand why, and I get the control, and some control I'm okay with. Like, I get it. Like, I read books like that. I mean, I think the Night Huntress series by Janine Frost, I think Bones, the hero in that, can be a little controlling. The difference there is that Kat, the heroine, she does stand up for herself and she doesn't back down when she really believes what she believes. And they are adults and have a conversation. And sometimes he was just really, I thought, too much. Like, she would do something really small and he would like freak out way too much and treat her like a child. And this is like a point of contention in the book, I admit that, but like it never really got resolved for me. Like, he just kind of continues to treat her like a child. I do think he's the more intriguing character in the story. I think his past is more interesting and I'm glad he has that, but he kind of reminds me of Travis Maddox from the Beautiful Disaster series, where I think he's kind of a little wacko and has the potential to be abusive. And the whole issues with his mom thing, I thought that was really interesting and it makes sense. And I don't know why I didn't pick up on that's what it would be, because, you know, I've watched a lot of Criminal Minds in my time. I understand these things and I didn't see it coming at all. But when he told her why he does what he does and that he basically, all of his submissives, including Anna, even though she's not a submissive, look like his mom, and he picks them so he can beat them, so he can beat his mom. Oh my god, that like blew me away when I read that, and it broke my heart. I feel like if people would give these books a chance to see something like that and read something like that, it makes you horribly uncomfortable, but it's also eye-opening and explains so much, and it still weirds me out because it's super Oedipal too, which Anna mentions briefly in it, that it's kind of like that. But what he had to go through with her, although when he kept calling her the crack whore, that really bothered me. I think it bothered Anna too. Eventually she was just like, you need to, like, you did love her, she wasn't a good mom, but you did love her, and I'm glad that happened, and I'm glad we got resolution there, because it bothered me every time he said that, because no matter what, that's your mom. I'm just, ugh. The fighting and the conflicts. So the majority of the books are obviously about the like relationship, the coupley parts and stuff, but there's a few external conflicts. So first, let's talk about the internal conflicts, like in their relationship. Their fights are so repetitive. It is like literally the same two fights, like over and over and over again. It really picks up in book 2. Book 3, it's really bad. Like, I started skimming sections. I was just like, whoa. And it wasn't just the fights, like that they would have the same fight every time. It was that they would have the fight, like literally every chapter fight that felt the same. The chapter would like start happy, then they'd have the fight, then they'd have have sex, and then they'd be like, okay, we're okay, and again, and then it would just like pick up again and cycle over and over again. And I found that really annoying, and to some degree I felt like that got resolved, which was a good thing, but I feel like it wasn't completely fixed. So then the not personal coupley conflict. So you have Layla, Elena, and Jack Hyde. So I actually really liked the Layla thing, like especially in book 3, like when she came back and everything. I thought that was really interesting. And when like in book 2, when she was in Anna's apartment and he like went all dominant on her and stuff, that was that it was kind of scary, but in like the best way, because it shows you how psychologically damaged this woman was, and to see her be able to repair herself was great. And I'm so glad she got that, and she's able to kind of like develop, like she's still moving on, but she's on a good path, and I think she'll, you know, have a good ending for herself. The whole Elena Mrs. Robinson thing was really weird. I kind of wanted Anna to meet her throughout the first book, and then when she did, I couldn't figure her out. I couldn't figure out if she liked Anna, if she didn't. I'm still not 100% sure. I feel like the writing wasn't really clear. I was kind of with Anna. I felt like what she did was really inappropriate and made me really uncomfortable, that she had this like relationship with a 15-year-old boy and kind of took advantage of him. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad that E.L. James put that in there, because I feel like that happens probably more than you think, like not all the time, like not constantly, but stuff like that. And instead of ultimately glorifying a relationship between like a younger boy and an older mom or an older woman, like American Pie, which, don't get me wrong, I know it's just a movie, it's comedy, I like it, don't get me wrong, But instead of doing something like that, she showed the ramifications of the situation. She showed the good things, the bad things, both sides of it, the Christian dealing with it, all of that. I thought that was really interesting. And then the Jack Hyde thing, I really felt like in book 3, him like going after Christian and Anna, it just seemed really forced to me, like foundation laid for that to make sense to me. And it also seemed to come and go as an issue in the 3rd book based on when she needed to add more tension or add a different kind of tension or conflict. And I wasn't really feeling it. I did have some issues with the writing, especially when it came to dialogue. This was mostly for the 1st book. I think it got a little better as the series went on, and also I think I might have gotten a little used to it as it went on. A lot of the writing, there was a lot of word choices made that felt very British to me, which I understand E.L. James is British, but then she should have set the book in Britain, and that would have been fine. Like, that's what I don't understand. I understand it was Twilight fan fiction to begin with, which is why it takes place in Seattle, but when it became its own thing, why not change it? Because it really bothered me how British it was, and even if it's because that's what she's used to, that's what an editor is for. The dialogue, especially between Anna and Christian, felt really stilted and too formal to me. Like, there was a lack of contractions, their word choice was a little mature. I mean, they're like 20-somethings, and I was just like, especially for her. Like, for him, I kind of understood, like, his mindset was so different that you could almost understand, but it kind of felt like I was reading a really old school Regency historical romance instead of a book taking place in 2011 in Seattle, Washington. The side characters. I did like a lot of the side characters. Like, I enjoyed Mia and Elliot. Kate kind of got on my nerves sometimes, but for the most part I liked her. Didn't like Jose at all. I found him really annoying. I liked her dad, Ray. I really liked him. But all that being said, I felt like a lot of those characters were underdeveloped. Like, they could have been more. They could have had a bigger presence. They could have had story and everything. And there was the whole thing with Ethan and Mia. Like, that never actually went anywhere. So, are they a couple? Are they not a couple? What happened? I want to know. It's time to talk about the sexy bits. I mean, the BDSM came pretty early in the book, which initially I was like, what? But in the end, I thought was a good thing. I think it gave us a lot of time to explore it and go with it, and that was interesting. I actually really liked the contract he has her look at. It's like basically a chapter, I think, is the contract. And initially I'm like, I get to that chapter and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so boring. But it was actually really enlightening and an interesting way to lay out exposition about something that probably most people don't give a lot of thought to. I mean, I think a lot of people understand, like, handcuffing or, like, tying your hands together with ropes and things, maybe, like, spanking. I don't know. I feel like people are, like, aware of those things. But how deep it goes and the relationship between, like, a dominant and a sub, like, I don't know all these things. So I felt like it was really interesting, and it also showed a lot about Christian's character, that he would put all this in writing and that shows how much he kind of cares about these women. He views them as being under his protection and he wants them not to be hurt more than agreed upon. I did think, however, that there was too much sex in the books. I think there's a line, and you don't want to cross it, where it just becomes repetitive and annoying and unnecessary. To me, a huge part about sex in stories and in romance is it's a tool to show intimacy or lack of intimacy and how characters react to things. And if you're just literally reading basically the same scene over and over again, it's just redundant and unnecessary. If you want to continue to have sex, it's fine, but then go off page, which she gets better at. There starts to be more off pages in like book 3, but It was just a lot. It felt like it was like every chapter, and I was just like, oh my gosh, can we just like just keep reading? And then I was like, skim these and then go to something else. And it was always used as a tool to like fix their problems, and does not fix the problems. Talking fixes the problems. Oh my gosh, the scene, was it book 2? I think it's book 2, when Christian, like, I don't even remember like specifically what happens. I wish I had marked it, but like they're having an argument, and then she says something and it like triggers something in his brain, and he immediately switches to being the submissive and like gets on his knees like he tells her to do, and like won't look her in the eyes. And scene like broke my heart, because I don't think he did it as like a calculated move, like manipulating. I thought that was like the most raw and honest we saw him, where he was so broken down that he went back to this thing that he like from when he was like a scared kid, almost, and it was just, it destroyed me. And I kind of wish he had stayed that way a little longer. Like, I feel like we got to see a part of him we didn't get to see other places, and it was so interesting, and I wanted a little bit more. I'm almost done. So really quick, I just want to talk about the idea of this book and the treatment of women. I feel like I've seen some comments, and some people's issues with this is they think these books are demeaning to women and everything. I'm a little conflicted about this. In general, I don't think that it is. Like I said earlier, I think there's times where he manipulates her. I don't think it's the healthiest relationship. I think they're kind of codependent. I think there's less healthy relationships. Honestly, I'm gonna have to say I think this relationship is healthier than the one in the Beautiful Disaster series. But I think a lot of the thoughts that people have in saying that, like that it's demeaning to women, they're not saying these books are demeaning to women. I think they're saying that the BDSM lifestyle is demeaning to women. And I think I said this in my book review, is that it is a lifestyle choice. And if you are two consenting adults that agree on something and decide to do something, then there is nothing wrong with this. I think Christian also makes a good point, and this is true in life, and I'm glad it gets brought up in the book. I think it's in book 1, it never really comes back again, but as the submissive, in a lot of ways, Anna is the one who has the power in the relationship, because she has the power to say no. And as long as that's what's going on, and there is a point where you can say no and those kinds of things, then that's good. And honestly, you know what, I'm pretty sure it didn't happen in any of these books. I could be wrong, but I don't remember it ever happening. I don't think he ever said, if you don't tell me no now, I'm not going to be able to stop. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves in romance, in young adult, and NA, is when a man says, if you don't tell me no, I'm not going to be able to stop. Because no, you're always allowed to say no whenever you want. So that's really it about the books. I just have 2 other things, and one is the trailer talk thing. I feel like it's been forever. My throat hurts. Okay. One thing is that I'm really curious to see if E.L. James ever writes anything else. Especially anything that doesn't take place in this world. I wouldn't be horribly surprised if like Mia and Ethan got their own book. But I want to know if she's going to write anything else. And if she does, I will check it out. I would probably even buy it. Just out of curiosity to see if she can write something else and what it would be. Would it be a romance? Would it be erotica? Would it be the same type of book? Like, what would it be and where would it go? It really intrigues me. Because as far as I know, she hasn't said anything. I don't think she's a very public person. Trailer discussion. I did think the trailer was really good. I'm honestly I wasn't the hugest fan of Dakota Johnson. Like, I don't know anything about her as an actress, so I guess I shouldn't say that. But when they cast her, I just was like, meh, whatever. Because the casting was like a pretty big deal. But I kind of like her in the role. I mean, I don't like the character of Anna, but I think she looks like she's going to be doing a good job with it. I'm not sure about Jamie Dornan. I like Jamie Dornan. Don't get me wrong. Huge Sheriff Graham fan. Once upon a time. But he doesn't mesh well with me right now with how I perceive Christian, based on the trailer, but that could change in the movie. That's actually how I felt about the guy that plays Finnick in Hunger Games, so things can change. They did there. They could now. I did think the trailer was done really well. I am glad that they addressed the content thing. I think the writing is a little melodramatic, but it's like that in the books, so... And it's funny, people are making fun of the dialogue and stuff, but it's very Twilight-y, so if you like Twilight, then why are you making fun of the 50 Shades dialogue, or are you finally admitting that Twilight isn't, like, the best thing ever? I feel like the movie is going to be done tastefully, and I do plan on going to see it. My one thing about this, and I did say this in my review, is I hope this movie does really well. I really, really do. And the reason for that is, one, screw everyone who just says stupid stuff because they don't know anything. Ugh, which I'm not going to go into right now, but all the people who are just, like, ignorant, I want the movie to do well, but, like, screw them over. But also, I kind of hope if it does well that means maybe production companies would look into turning romance novels into feature films. They have been made, like Lifetime has made a lot. They've made some Nora Roberts, some Debbie Macomber, how do you say her name? I don't know. Hallmark has made some. I know they made a Lisa Kleypas one and all of that, but that's a different style, and I think one thing that holds romance back is sexual content. And so if 50 Shades of Grey can do it, considering it's a much more extreme content, and be successful, then maybe I can get my Bridgerton movies. Please. Black Dagger Brotherhood? Actually, I'm pretty sure that'll never happen because I don't think J.R. Ward would ever sell the rights, but that could happen and make a great, I'm just saying, great TV show on like Stars or HBO, Showtime, something like that. It would be great. Like each book could be a season. Okay, so I have talked enough at this point. If you have read 50 Shades of Grey, and whether you liked it or not, whether you disagree with me or not, feel free to talk in the comments. I want this to be like a place where people can have a conversation about it. Like I said, I had issues and I had things I did like, and I think it's perfectly normal to not like things. And especially if you disagree with me, feel free to put your opinions out there, especially if it's something like the demeaning women thing, just because I don't completely understand that argument in my head. And so if you feel that way and you feel like you can articulate it, please let me know. Maybe I'll change my opinion. You stuck around for all this nonsense. Thank you so much. And I will endeavor to make all future reviews much shorter. So, bye.